Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Steven Mayatt is the owner of Pocket Creatives, a video production and photography company. Recently, Steven has been taking a slight step back to work on his business as well as in it, and that includes networking. Thank you very much for being my podcast guest today, Steven.
Hello Liz, how are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Now, you're a creative director and a photographer, but have you always worked in that sector? What's been your career journey so far?
It's gone through a few different left and right turns, really. I mean, I've always been a creative at heart, and I guess I started in broadcasting, so I was one of the very lucky ones who came out of school knowing exactly what I wanted to do, and that was make video content. And back in those days, it was all DVDs, or it was film, or it was television, and so I sort of headed down the television route straight into broadcasting. So I studied broadcasting and managed to work in post-production to start off with. Yeah. So I joined a post facility and looked after quite a large team who supported lots of BBC and ITV work, sort of Horizon documentaries, Crime Watch and things like that. And that gave me a really sort of good base of sort of technical understanding, knowing how to speak to people, knowing how to deliver a good sort of level of service, befitting of sort of some quite difficult projects with some tricky characters and some very, very tough and tight deadlines. And so it was kind of a little bit of a baptism of fire. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do long term. I wanted to do my own stuff. I think I've always been someone who's been keen to sort of be a master of my own destiny, really. And so despite doing that full time, I'd always was able to build a little bit of my own business on the side. And actually, I managed to bring a couple of clients through from my college course into the real world. So the Museum of London being the main one, we did a little project for them to celebrate 25th anniversary when I was studying.
Yeah.
And rather than go back to the college after I've left for their next project, they came straight back to me.
Oh,
and
great.
So that gave me an opportunity to start working out what it would be like to be my own boss. I had to do my HMRC registrations and look after my own tax. And that was very, very, at the time, tough but exciting thing to do, at sort of 20, 21 years old. Go, all right, I have to register for tax, and it's quite a hair-raising thing, and you don't realise that it's quite a straightforward thing. It feels very, very serious and very adult. And you don't really want to be, but yeah, and very, very long story short, I've kind of gone through the broadcasting journey through doing a little bit of leisure and heritage. I then joined my company with another, and we started to do a lot more in the sort of higher end sort of business and corporate world. So working with companies like Tesco and British Gas and Philips, and that was an education very, very different to what I had previously. Learning to put proposals together and deliver work to, again, another sort of big jump up in terms of quality of and client management. And I guess then the world changed a little bit. Everybody started to use social media. We stopped using DVDs. We started delivering everything online. And I had a real interest in doing more short form, quick fire, engaging, interesting pieces rather than your 10 to 20 minute epics and training videos. And actually, I then set up a new business with my current business partners, with which we became Pocket Creatives. And they were only 17 years old at the time. So they took a little bit of a leap of faith in me, and I likewise from my side as well. And they decided not to go through the sort of the usual university route for their careers, and instead went, look, we'd rather go out and get our hands dirty and start to learn how to do things. And And the three of us kind of went, all right, hands over our eyes, jumped into that head first. And sort of 5 years later, here we are.
Yeah, so a big leap of faith on both parts, I think there, but it seems to have worked out for you.
Very much so. It's an enjoyable business to be a part of, and it's very enjoyable working with people who don't have exactly the same mindset as you.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for working with younger people. I mean, I'm not that long ago turned 40, and I still feel like I'm very, very young. But when you've got your sort of business partners 15, nearly sort of 18 years younger than you, it does very, very much have an impact on the dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, in a good way, I should think.
In a very good way. I mean, I think I left my previous business expecting that actually I'd been there, seen it and done it. And it's only then when you start working with other people who are very, very different in their backgrounds from you that you realise that actually, you get to a certain stage in your career and you can still learn an awful lot from the people around you, even if they're from different backgrounds with less experience than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as a mother of a 17 and a 20-year-old, they can teach you a lot.
I bet, yeah.
So I love the name Pocket Creatives. So and I'd like to know how you came up with that.
By complete mistake, if I'm honest with you. We had some dreadful names floating around when we were starting off. I can't even remember them. I think they've probably gone right to the back of my mind in the hope that they'd never make the light of day again. But I think we wanted something that was, regular everyday words and something that perhaps had a little bit of cuteness, I suppose, to it. We're very personable people. We didn't want something that was kind of like, pink spaceship or anything that was going to be too you didn't have to think about it and it wasn't too wild or crazy. But I guess the reasoning for this is that the vast majority of the work that we create ends up in your pocket through your phone connected to social media. And it kind of, I think we probably reverse engineered that that thinking and that justification, but there was no one else out there that was called it, and actually that is, it's hard to find something that no one else has done or named themselves, and that just we saw it and we thought, yeah, great, that'll do.
Yeah, well, it works because I immediately had images of phone in back pocket, so yeah. Even if that's not what you intended in the first place, it's worked.
I think you grow into it sometimes as well, actually, and it's funny. We got ourselves branded 5 years ago when we started. We've never come close to having a rebrand. We've never come close to having a name change. And I think you're onto a right thing then when actually you don't feel the need to reinvent yourself even after a good few years. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's talk a bit about what you do for your clients. What kind of projects do you get involved in?
So we offer two main things, really. We don't go as far as to say that we are an all singing, all dancing agency of everything. There was definitely a design at one point to want to do all of that, but actually we made a conscious decision to focus on the things that we're good at to start off with and the things that we really want to do, and that is delivering creative work. So that's photography and that's video production. We don't do social media management. We don't do all the marketing, the market research, the strategy. We have to apply a lot of marketing thought and a lot of communications theory to what we offer. Otherwise, you're just a gun for hire ultimately, unless you can provide some proper thought and thinking behind what you offer. But yeah, we do anything from product pack shots at sort of the easier level, I guess. We do a lot of social media content, a lot of brand videos, and we've recently started doing in the past year TV adverts as well. So it covers quite a range of services.
And who are your clients? Is there any such thing as a typical client, or do you work with a broad range of people?
I tell you what's happened is that as time has gone on, we've ended up developing a bit more of a target customer, and at the moment that tends to be in the beauty and cosmetics industry, as well as the food and drinks industries. However, when we started, we did make a point of going against all the advice that we were given to niche, find a customer, stick to it, do that. But we didn't want to do the same stuff every single day.
Yeah.
We didn't want to wake up and go, all right, great, here's project number 12 for this client, and let's open this template and do that. I think it goes against everything that you want as a creative if you have to stop applying creative thought.
Yeah.
And actually, part of what we've created here is a business where it'd be wrong to say we're a jack of all trades, because we're not, but we're in a very strong position to offer our services regardless of what sector or what stage of the business our client might be at. There'll be something that we can offer to almost everybody out there, unless it's to a point where it is specialist enough that we'll turn it away because actually we don't believe that we're the right people for it.
Yeah. And I think it's always good to know, isn't it, when you're not the right person, and if you can point the client in the direction of somebody who would be better than you, then that client's still going to remember you for doing that, I think.
Yeah, and actually it's really, really hard in our industry to have a USP.
Yes.
As a professional creative, it's expected that you deliver professional quality results. We can't say that the reason that you should hire us is because you get great quality video. Actually, any video production company, you should expect that. We focus a lot more on the kind of people we are and the kind of service that you get from us. And again, that's not a USP in itself either. But the reason that people would come to us typically is because we are quite nice to work with. We don't have a lot of egos floating around. We don't tell people what we're going to deliver for them and then give it to them at the end once they've given us their money. It's a very much a collaborative, very human-driven approach.
Yes.
And I think that's where we try to make that difference. And honesty and trust are huge elements of that.
Yeah. And I think this is perhaps where you can start talking about the networking now then. So I was having a look at your LinkedIn profile earlier on today, and it said that you started off being very hands-on, but now you're able to kind of step back a bit and work on the business. And I'm guessing that includes networking for the business, does it?
It does, yeah. And actually, I've made life slightly harder for myself, I suppose, in some ways, because during the pandemic, my wife and I actually moved up to the north of England, whereas the rest of the team are based in London, and we've got a studio in London. And part of that reasoning was so that, for a change, the business can help support not only me now, but in the future, the people that are working within our business to sort of help provide a little bit of balance, really. We all go through periods where we overwork, and you're on your phone until late. You feel like you're under pressure to reply to any email, regardless of what past 11 at night that might come in. But if you look at the positive side of that from our client's perspective, is that you get a more sort of balanced person, I guess, at the end of it. And what I've tried to create as part of the requirements for my role is the ability to sort of step back, view things with a clean set of eyes. I'm not there every day in and amongst everything, and I think that does give you an ability to have a completely different impact on how you go about a project and how a project gets overseen, and the support that you can give to your clients and to your team doing that work. And going back to the networking side, whereas pre-COVID, I was very happy going out, meeting people, going to networking events, for example. I can't do that quite as easily now because I'm 200 miles away. But actually, more and more virtual events are kicking in, and that's quite an interesting thing to be a part of.
Yeah. No, I think you and I met on an online FSB networking event.
Yeah.
Why do you think? Why is networking important for you? Why is it important for you to attend those kinds of events?
I think what we're seeing now is that, regardless of your competition, actually, most people, I think at the moment, have the mindset that life is quite hard. The world is twisting and turning on us seemingly every month at the moment. And there are some horrifying statistics from a business owner's perspective about how many get sort of knocked out and have to close over a given month, and that's terrifying for most business owners to sort of see the prevalence of difficulties that are out there. And I think what I have found very interesting, certainly at the FSB events recently, is that people aren't joining these meetings to push their own agenda and, sales, sales, sales. The first thing that I noticed was everybody was connecting with me and saying, who can I introduce you to?
Yeah.
What sort of clients are you interested in? Who's going to be interested in what you are delivering? And I found that a really refreshing change to the I'm here for this, buy this from me, buy this service, join this newsletter, and everything else, which was my previous view of how those sort of events work.
Yeah, and that doesn't work, does it? If you go in with the mindset of, I'm here to sell to these people, that's just a turn off right away, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's, as I say, it's a difficult world at the moment, and I think what everybody's realising is that it's a very imperfect way of selling. And more people are adopting the mindset of education rather than direct sales in that sense. It's a matter of letting people know what you do and why and how you can help them if they need you, rather than being too in your face and down people's throats.
Yeah, I think everybody likes to be helped, but nobody likes to be sold to.
No, exactly that. Yeah, and we get it from every angle, don't we? LinkedIn, emails, texts, phone, social media, everywhere, every single where we're looking at the moment, regardless of what kind of a life you lead, you're being sold to from every minute of the day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, on every possible media channel there is out there. And I think getting that every day through every message you get every day, and particularly where we choose to go to these networking events, I think ideally what you want to do is you want to learn what other people are doing, and learning from any of the struggles that they're having and the ways that they're getting around some of those challenges, rather than just joining something and having to kind of rebuff everything that you're already getting too much exposure to anyway.
Yeah. So how much networking do you do, and have you got networking meetings that you go to on a regular basis?
I'm scaling them up. I think, as most business owners find, the time to do that, these kind of activities, is a small percentage of their month. We're pushed and pulled into so many different directions and responsibilities, aren't we? Regardless of what sort of size business that you own, finding time to dedicate to something where you don't know what the outcome is going to be, or rather, you don't really know what the value of that to you is going to be, is quite hard. I'm finding that I may be doing one or two online events a month at the moment, and I think that will probably increase over time. But it's sometimes difficult to find enough dedication to those where you know that you might have 50 million other things that you need to do on that day as well.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to networking, it's not a thing that you see instant results from. It's it's a long-term thing. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So, like you say, you might think, well, I'm not sure what my return's going to be on this investment of my time. So, do I want to make that investment of time? But you kind of don't know until you've been doing it for a while whether it's working for you or not.
Well, that's it. You can't. I think you can't come off of a networking event over Zoom and go, right, well, how do I measure my percentage return back off of this previous two hours that I've just invested in this? It doesn't work in that way.
No.
Ultimately, it is it's a slow burn.
Yes.
And ultimately, I think you're not doing it. If you're doing it for the reasons that you're just going to measure your ROI come the end of it, it's not something to do with that expectation. But actually, what's lovely is to be able to meet people, and there's always an opportunity that you'll speak with somebody and they might know somebody else, or you might meet someone and you might be able to introduce them to somebody else. And I think things like that, I really enjoy, because it does remind you that business is not just about the cold, hard selling and making money.
No.
And it's not what I got into this for. Making money out of business I've always kind of regarded as a necessary evil, which in many ways has made me a dreadful business person, because I don't always put that first. But actually I like to think it's a nicer way of being if you're not just chasing every pound coin that's available out there.
Yeah. And I think the networking, especially if you're going to a group regularly, it gives you that opportunity to establish relationships with people.
Yes, and to be honest, I joined the FSB only at the beginning of the year, and so I'm a very late comer to this. So I'm still kind of feeling my way around that, and making sure I get myself to more. And I'm not quite at that stage yet where I'm going, oh hey, hi, it's you. We met you with the last one. But that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm looking forward to getting to in the next couple of months.
Yeah, and I think that's when the networking starts to work really well. Once you've got to know people, and then you understand their business a bit better, and then you can really think about who there is in your network that you could introduce them to that they might be helpful for.
Yeah, and I think it's really nice as well to see other services and platforms and things out there that perhaps you wouldn't have thought about. You don't always go looking for something. Every now and again, you want to be found by someone or inspired by someone or something that they do that you just didn't know might have a positive impact on your business or your team. And so I quite like that element as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been going almost 5 years now as Pocket Creatives. How do you see the next 5 years panning out?
It's an interesting one, and actually I am having to actively dedicate time to thinking about that question. With the prevalence of smartphones and the ease now of technology, there are more and more people in our space. There are more people who are doing their own filming and photography that have effectively become, I think they're called them phantom competitors, and that does have a lot of questions over what you can still add as value from being an expert in our field.
Yeah.
So what can we do that someone who has an iPhone and a little bit of a brain, what can we still offer that gives them an upgrade on doing it themselves? And that's an interesting question that I think we're going to have for the next few years. AI is becoming more interesting as well in a number of different areas that affect the range of services that we offer. I've always been of the mindset that computers will find it very, very difficult to replace that human intuition.
Yeah.
However, almost on a weekly basis, I'm almost being proven wrong in some areas. So I think it's a difficult question. I think people will continue to do more of their own work, but I think the strategy and I think the subtleties that sit in between the lines are where my company will still be able to add an awful lot of value. Knowing how to interview people, knowing when to go up to somebody or when not to go up to somebody, knowing what shots to cut together, knowing whether or not the visuals that you're going to deliver to somebody need to have a white background or when they don't. We don't only work with large companies, we work with a lot of startups, and what they value almost more than anything from you is your ability to handhold and recommend and make suggestions. And again, I don't see being able to do things yourself or newer technologies being able to replace having a conversation with someone in my position to say, look, here's the position that I'm in, what do you recommend? And being able to use my experience to say, well, actually, from having worked with lots of companies like you before, this is what you should look at doing next, and perhaps this is the thing you should look at doing after, but don't waste your money here, or here, which are not at the stage where that's going to be of a benefit yet.
Yeah. And that's something that no computer is ever likely to be able to do, I think.
I'd like to hope not, otherwise it definitely puts me out of a job.
So finally then, Stephen, if people are interested in finding out more about you and Pocket Creatives, what's the best way for them to find you?
The usual best starting point is our website, which is www.pocketcreatives with the S on the end, .co.uk. We've spent an awful lot of time making sure that's got all the right information on it, and it contains an awful lot of stuff to look at, even if it's just for people's inspiration, really, to see what sort of content that they could create. But we offer a lot of different services, but we never charge anything for someone to phone up and say, hey, this is the position I'm in. What can you add? What can you do? What would you recommend I do at my stage? So that's the starting point, really.
Lovely. So you're always happy to have a chat with people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time today, and the best of luck with Pocket Creatives going forward.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.